You're at work, just doing your best to help out a customer in need. You see someone struggling, so you step in to assist. It's the right thing to do. But then, out of nowhere, you're told you've crossed the line. And just like that, you're fired. Sounds crazy, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to one worker. And the story doesn't end there. It takes a wild twist when none other than Elon Musk gets involved. Let's take a step back and break down this shocking turn of events. It all started at a bustling retail store where a young worker named Jake, who had been with the company for just over a year, was known for his friendly attitude and willingness to go above and beyond. Jake wasn't just the guy who showed up on time or followed the rules. He was the one who would always give that extra bit of effort, whether it was helping customers pick out the perfect product or offering a simple smile to brighten someone's day. For Jake, the job wasn't just about earning a paycheck. It was about making people feel valued and heard. One afternoon, a customer came in who seemed to be having a rough day. The woman, a mother of 3, was trying to find a particular item for her kids, but nothing seemed to fit. She was frustrated, stressed out from juggling everything in her life, and you could see it in her eyes. She had no idea what she needed or where to find it. But Jake did. Without hesitation, he walked up to her, asked a few questions, and then made it his mission to track down exactly what she was looking for. He took the time to listen, gave thoughtful advice, and even helped her load everything into her cart. The customer left with a smile on her face, feeling heard, understood, and helped. A small gesture, but for Jake, it was a job well done. He wasn't just serving a customer. He was making a real difference in someone's day. But that's when things took a shocking turn. Jake was called into the manager's office shortly after the interaction. He thought maybe it was to commend him for his excellent customer service. Instead, he was hit with something entirely different. He was told that his actions had violated company policy. The reason? Apparently, the store had strict guidelines about how employees should interact with customers, and Jake had gone above and beyond in a way that wasn't part of the official script. The company didn't approve of employees taking too much initiative when it came to helping customers, especially in ways that were outside of their defined roles. Jake was in disbelief. How could helping someone be a violation of policy? But as the meeting went on, he realized it didn't matter how he felt. It wasn't about him. The decision had already been made. He was fired, just like that. Now, most people might have just walked away, accepted their fate, and moved on. But not Jake. He knew he had done the right thing, and he wasn't going to let this unjust decision slide. Little did he know, his story was about to get a lot bigger than he ever imagined. Enter Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur, known for his innovative ideas and big moves, had recently made headlines for being more vocal about issues of workplace culture. Musk had always been an advocate for breaking the mold, thinking outside the box, and standing up for what was right, especially when it came to leadership and the treatment of employees. But what was more surprising was that Jake's story had caught the attention of Musk himself. It started when Jake's former coworker, a friend who knew how hard he'd worked, posted the story on social media. The post went viral, capturing the attention of people everywhere who felt outraged by Jake's firing. They saw it as an example of an overly rigid, cold corporate system that didn't care about the human side of work. The story gained traction across Twitter, and soon, Musk saw it in his feed. Musk, never one to back down from controversy, decided to speak out. He shared a tweet about Jake's firing, calling it an example of how companies often prioritize policies over people. The tweet caught fire, sparking widespread discussions about company cultures, the treatment of workers, and what it really means to care for the people who make businesses run. But Musk didn't stop at just tweeting. He took things a step further. In a series of posts, he announced that he would personally step in and make a move to help Jake, but no one knew exactly what that meant. Was Musk offering Jake a job? Was he going to take action against the company? The tension grew, and the questions started piling up. Jake, meanwhile, was caught in the whirlwind of attention. At first, he didn't even know how to react to all the sudden buzz. He had simply done what he thought was right. But now, his story was being watched by millions. Some people saw him as a hero standing up against corporate giants, while others questioned if Musk's involvement was really about helping or just adding to the spectacle. Either way, Jake was now at the center of something much bigger than he ever expected. So, what's next for Jake? And what will Musk actually do to make things right? Is this the beginning of a new movement in the way companies treat their workers? Or is it all just noise? Stay tuned to find out what happens when one small act of kindness sparks a chain reaction that leads all the way to one of the most influential people in the world. This story is far from over, and the answers might just surprise you. As the story continued to unfold, the world watched with bated breath. The outrage over Jake's firing wasn't just limited to social media. It spread like wildfire across news outlets, blogs, and forums, and what had initially seemed like a local incident turned into a national conversation. People were beginning to ask deeper questions about workplace culture, about the very systems that were in place to govern employee behavior. It was no longer just about Jake, it was about something bigger. This was a fight for fairness, for the recognition of workers as more than just cogs in a corporate machine. Jake, still reeling from the shock of being fired, found himself overwhelmed by the attention. He hadn't wanted this kind of publicity. His intention was simple: help a customer, do his job well, and go home. But now, he was the face of a larger movement, and as much as he appreciated the support from people online, the pressure was mounting. He felt like he was being pulled in 100 different directions. Some urged him to take legal action against his former employer, while others suggested he capitalize on the situation for his own gain. But Jake wasn't interested in any of that. All he wanted was to feel that his efforts had been worthwhile, that he had done the right thing. Meanwhile, the company that had fired him found itself on the defensive. The backlash was fierce. Customers began to boycott their stores, influencers took to social media to share their disapproval, and former employees started speaking out about similar stories of corporate overreach. It was clear that this wasn't just an isolated case. The company's reputation, already a little shaky, was now in jeopardy. But instead of responding with empathy or seeking to make amends, the corporation dug in its heels. They issued a cold, corporate statement defending their actions and reinforcing the idea that company policies are there for a reason. They stood by the decision to fire Jake, claiming that his behavior had set a dangerous precedent for employees taking too much initiative. But it wasn't just Jake who felt the sting of this decision. His coworkers, some of whom had known him for years, were also disheartened. They admired Jake for his willingness to go the extra mile for customers, but they also saw the harsh reality of what this firing meant. If it could happen to him, it could happen to any of them. Many employees began to fear for their own jobs, wondering if they too would be penalized for going above and beyond. Some were even considering leaving the company altogether, but they weren't sure what their future would look like. In a world where job security was already fragile, stepping out of line could cost them everything. As the controversy escalated, Elon Musk's involvement became the focal point. People were eager to know what his next move would be, and Musk didn't disappoint. He began making headlines once again, but this time, it was for something that seemed almost personal. Musk, who had built his empire by challenging the status quo and pushing the boundaries of what's possible, seemed to be using his platform to take on the very idea of corporate conformity. He started a series of posts questioning the ethics behind companies that punish employees for taking initiative, asking his followers whether it was time for a major change in how businesses treated their workers. His tweets were bold, and his support for Jake was unwavering. But Musk's support came with its own set of complications. While many cheered him on, others were skeptical. Some saw his intervention as nothing more than a PR stunt, a way for Musk to align himself with a growing movement without truly committing to anything substantial. There were also those who questioned whether Musk was the right person to advocate for workers' rights, given the reputation of his own companies and the controversies that surrounded their treatment of employees. Could Musk really be trusted to lead a new charge for workers' rights? Or was this just another example of a billionaire using his influence to further his own interests? Jake, meanwhile, remained in the eye of the storm. He was contacted by reporters, lawyers, and even advocates for workers' rights, all of whom wanted him to be part of something bigger. Some even suggested that he should become the face of a new movement, one that challenged the very way businesses treated their employees. But Jake wasn't sure. He didn't want to be the spokesperson for anything. He just wanted to find a way to move on, to heal, and to do what he loved again. The pressure was beginning to take a toll on him. And then, just when things seemed to be spiraling out of control, something unexpected happened. Musk announced that he was offering Jake a job, one that would give him the opportunity to work for one of Musk's many companies. The offer, however, came with a caveat. Jake would have to leave his past behind him and step into a new role, one that would place him at the forefront of the fight for better workplace conditions. Musk painted a picture of a future where Jake could help build something bigger than himself, something that would change the corporate landscape for good. Jake was floored. On one hand, it felt like a dream come true, a chance to work with someone who had become a symbol of rebellion against the corporate system. On the other hand, it felt like he was being asked to leave everything he knew behind. Was this truly an opportunity to make a difference? Or was Musk just looking for someone to use as a pawn in his own personal crusade? The decision weighed heavily on him. As Jake grappled with the decision of a lifetime, the tension only grew. People began to wonder, would Jake accept Musk's offer, or would he stand firm in his desire to carve out his own path? Would the company that fired him back down? Or would they double down and fight against the growing movement that had emerged from his firing? What was next for the man who had simply wanted to help a customer, but had ended up at the center of a storm that could change everything? The stage was set, and the stakes were higher than ever. Jake's next move would determine not only his future, but possibly the future of every worker who felt undervalued and unheard. And the world was waiting for him to make his choice. The days after Elon Musk's offer felt like a blur for Jake. He spent countless hours trying to sort through his emotions, the noise of the world around him almost deafening. On one side, there was the undeniable allure of joining Musk's world, a place where change was constant, and the rules of the old corporate system didn't apply. On the other, Jake felt a deep-rooted pull to stay true to his own values, not becoming a figurehead for a cause he didn't fully understand. He knew the stakes were high. His decision wasn't just about him anymore. It was about something much bigger. The pressure reached its breaking point when Jake made the decision to meet with Musk in person. He wanted to hear directly from the man behind the offer, to understand if this was truly an opportunity to make a difference, or just another high-profile project. The meeting was set up, and soon, Jake found himself sitting across from Musk in one of the most iconic and unconventional offices he'd ever seen. The walls were lined with prototypes of electric cars, space technology, and reminders of the boundary-pushing endeavors that Musk had built his career on. Musk was calm, almost too calm for someone who had been at the center of so much media attention lately. He spoke honestly about his beliefs in shaking up the corporate world, in creating companies where employees were empowered, and in breaking free from outdated policies that stifled creativity and initiative. He asked Jake questions about his experiences, what he wanted from a job, and how he saw the future of work. It was an intense conversation, but at no point did Jake feel like he was being pressured. Musk was, in his own way, giving Jake the space to make up his mind. After hours of discussion, Jake realized that the decision was clearer than he'd imagined. This wasn't about a dream job. It wasn't about the glitz and glamour of being associated with one of the most powerful figures in tech. It was about taking a stand for something that mattered. Musk's offer wasn't just a career opportunity, it was a chance to be part of something revolutionary. But Jake knew that his journey wasn't just about being rescued by Musk. It was about shaping a new narrative where employees' voices were valued, and where kindness and initiative weren't seen as weaknesses but strengths. The moment was now or never. Jake decided to accept Musk's offer, but with a twist. He wasn't going to abandon everything that made him who he was. He would join the company, but he would do it on his own terms. He would help build a new kind of culture, one where employees weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, but vital contributors to the mission of a company. Jake wasn't just going to follow orders. He was going to lead by example. His story, his firing, his rise to the center of the conversation, would all serve as a reminder that real change started with the people on the ground, not at the top. The news of Jake's decision was met with shock, but also admiration. People from all walks of life rallied behind him. Former coworkers sent messages of support, influencers who had criticized the company now applauded his choice, and customers who had boycotted the store began to reconsider their stance. It wasn't just about the job or the company. It was about Jake standing up for what was right. As for the company that had fired him, they were forced to re-evaluate their entire approach. The negative publicity and the growing support for Jake had pushed them into a corner. They were forced to offer an apology, not just to Jake, but to all of their employees who felt stifled by the rigid, impersonal policies. It wasn't a perfect resolution. There were still many unanswered questions about how they would change their culture, but it was a start. Jake's firing, a moment that had seemed like the end, had sparked a new beginning. The ripple effect of his decision to stand up for himself had led to a shift in the very fabric of workplace culture. In the end, Jake's journey became more than just a story about a man standing up to corporate injustice. It became a testament to the power of doing what's right, even when it's difficult. It showed that even the smallest actions could lead to massive change, and that individuals, when given the chance, could shape the future in ways that no one expected. Jake didn't just accept Musk's offer. He helped start a conversation about how businesses could do better, how they could evolve, and how they could treat employees like the human beings they truly are. The story wasn't just about one man's struggle. It was a reflection of the broader fight for fairness, respect, and dignity in the workplace. Jake had been fired for helping a customer, but in the end, he had helped ignite a movement. And while the world had watched in anticipation, they had learned something powerful. Sometimes the most unexpected moments, the ones that seem like setbacks, are actually the ones that lead to real change. And as for Jake, he had found something more valuable than a paycheck. He had found purpose.